And then there's a lot of old faces. No, I'll say friends that I've known for a while. So a lot of you may know me from my Kettle One days. I actually started with Terlato right after Repeal Day last year, after hanging out with my boss back there, Mr. Eric Weatherington. We took some funny pictures at the gala, and next thing you know, he was like, "Do you want to interview?" I was like, "All right, okay, deal." So I'm part of this incredible company, Terlato. Most people will recognize as a wine company. The Terlato family is a huge international wine company with tons and tons of brands, and they had a few kind of craft spirits like sprinkled into the portfolio, including Nonino. But now we've grown, so we did a joint venture with Distill, which is a South African-based company that brings in some great scotches, some great South African brands like Amarula and Bain's Cape Mountain Whiskey, and also a relationship with Angostura rum from Trinidad. So a nice big portfolio. Today's seminar is, I love it when you call me Big GRAPPA. For a couple of reasons. I had the pleasure of spending a little bit of time with the 6th generation Nonino. Her name is Francesca, while we were at Tales of the Cocktail this year. And she's a sweet little 24-year-old thing, and she loves hip-hop. And so we decided that she loves grappa, and we love it when everybody calls it Big GRAPPA. So that's going to be our fun play on words today. We're going to do a quick base. Oh, wait, maybe not.
See, you gotta test that one.
My technology is failing me.
Siri. No. Try the other button. Try the other button.
Try the other one?
Yeah, you probably are trying to advance it to the forward. That's the direction.
I don't think it's on. That's right. Don't worry about it.
It wouldn't be clicking if it was not probably.
So, when I started with this portfolio, I was pretty excited to work with grappa. It's one of those spirits that I don't think we get exposed to very often, and it's actually pretty darn incredible. So today we're going to basically talk about what is grappa. We're going to talk about how it's made. We're going to talk about the Nonino family specifically and what they've done to build the category to what it is today. And then we're doing a tasting and food pairing. So we're pretty excited to see some food in front of you. Good. So we're going to be able to walk through some of the single varietals from Nonino, as well as 2 new products that we just launched this year, which are the Vendemmia and the Vendemmia Reserva, which actually have 2 different types of grape styles to them. So really fun. So what is grappa? Grappa is essentially a brandy that is made from the leftovers from the winemaking process. So the pumice, or the must, or the marc, which is basically the seeds, stems, and skins of the grapes. So it's kind of the leftovers. It was originally considered to be kind of a poor man's drink. It was for the servants and kind of the peasants working in the industry. That's coffee, by the way, coming out. A little bit colder. So everybody's pretty excited about that one too. So when we talk about the winemaking process, basically what you're going to do is you're going to press those grapes. You're going to have a juice and it's going to ferment. Right? After that, you're going to press that, and you're going to take all the juice away, and what get left over is all the solids. That's your must or your tonics. After that process, you basically then are like, oh, we're going to just start this. So what can we do with it? And that's how grappa came. Grappa is actually the most popular drink in Italy. Over 40 million bottles per year, which is quite a lot of grappa, much more than the United States consumes. Or a much smaller grappa market than Italy for sure. Over 120 different producers. Grappa really originated in Bassano del Grappa, which is kind of the namesake of it, in the Veneto region of Italy, which is in northern Italy. And it was really kind of done mobily for many years, just kind of like Armagnac and sometimes Cognac. So you have a mobile still, you'd be like cruising through the fields and just taking all the must and distilling it right then and there into steam stills. So it wasn't always the best spirit. It was considered basically a moonshine at some point. But it has grown to be a huge category and much more super premium than it ever has been in the past. Officially, the European Union decided that grappa would actually be made in Italy, which is kind of loosely taken. I've seen some grappas made in the United States labeled as grappa, but legally, as far as the European Union is concerned, they're not. Grappa is a product of Italy specifically since 1989. You basically have 2 different styles. You can mix up a bunch of different varietals, or you can do a single varietal. Single varietal is just kind of like the wine industry, where you simply have to have 85% as that one varietal of fruit to be named a single varietal grappa. Make sense? There's basically 3 types. So you have young, which is not aged in wood. It's usually rested though, for at least 6 to 12 months.
What's the regulatory agency?
The regulatory agency on grappa, it's, I don't know, like, its initials are MIG, but I don't know what it is in Italian.
Italian.
Like the Italian words for it in the right order, but they call it the MIG.
Sure, but it's
Yeah.
Italian, not European.
Yeah, it's specifically Italian. Yeah. I'm like, I forget what the actual like words of the agency are in the right order, but I know they call it MIG.
Italian.
Yeah. So you've got your young, which is your Bianca, right? So this is going to be usually a clear grappa that's probably been mellowed in stainless steel. Aged grappa is going to be aged in wooden barrels, and it can be all types of different wood. So there's not any specific wood. It could be, oak. It could be ash. It could be cherry. It could be acacia. All sorts of different things. And then you have 2 different styles of your age. So your Vecchiata, which is minimum of 12 months, and Reserva. So in order to say Reserva on a bottle, it has to be aged for 18 months or more. And then there's grappas that are aged for much, much longer. And then you have your flavored grappas, which would typically be like flavors like honey, or almond, lemon, blueberries, all sorts of things that grow in northern Italy, typically. So how do we make grappa? So essentially, the idea is that you want to use the freshest pomace possible, because there is a possibility for a secondary fermentation. So essentially when you get a red grape mark, when you get the pomace from red grapes, there's usually about 4 to 5% alcohol still kind of residing in the pomace itself. So typically that'll go immediately into distillation, the whole actual items, like so the stems, the seeds, and the skins will go into these big tanks. Well, actually they're quite small, because you can't put a lot of those at a time. And it'll be hit with steam, and that steam will then take the alcohol and make it rise to the top, right? So it's basically pulling the alcohol from the solids with a steam process, steam distillation. With white wine, it's a little bit different. The white wine tends to be only about 1 to 2% alcohol by volume after the vinification process. So it actually needs to go through a fermentation process on site. So what they'll do is they'll basically use an ensilage process, which is basically putting it in a controlled temperature silo for about 48 hours, maybe up to 72, to where it ferments again. The challenge on the fermentation process in all of grappas is that you don't want to get those methanol levels up super high, or else it's quite dangerous and quite disgusting. So it's very, very important to use super fresh pomace and make sure that it's very well controlled as far as the quality goes. So same process with the white, it'll then go into the steam distillation, copper pots. You basically distill all of the alcohol that you possibly can out of the leftovers, and then condense that down into a liquid. It takes like 400 pounds of malt to make 1 bottle. So it's an incredibly intense process, and obviously during harvest, and when we're making wine, it only happens really like once a year, right? So it's a 24-hour like non-stop operation when it's time to make grappa each year. So pretty intense. And then after distillation, essentially you'll go into your maturation period, where you're either resting in stainless steel or you're aging in oak or wood for that matter. Usually barriques, small barrels, big barrels. No rules on that one. So you can do just about anything. It's pretty cool. The Noninos are pretty awesome. Special points if anybody actually knows what this symbol means. That's above Nonino, the logo. It is actually an ancient symbol for alcohol. So pretty cool. The Nonino family basically started in 1897 with Orazio. So he was basically running around the fields in the Friuli region with his noble still. He then decided it was time to settle down, make some roots, build a distillery. So that's what happened. In 1928, the first woman to produce grappa was a Nonino, which was pretty cool, at the original site in Monte di Pavia in Percoto. And then in 1962, this is when it starts to get really good. Benito is the fourth generation. He married Giannola, and Giannola basically was like a businesswoman. This woman is like crazy Italian mom, and she's like, we are gonna grow this little grappa business that you have inherited from your family into a worldwide recognized thing. So she went from literally Cinderella to queen. That's what her idea was with grappa. And she was an incredible marketer. She really believed in the quality of it. She also had a huge passion for actual grapes. You know, so she actually helped revive all of these old forgotten wines that were native to that region that had been basically wiped away. And they won tons and tons of awards on the idea of what they've done to change the wine industry in Italy from some of the kind of forgotten, more ancient grape styles that were growing there, which is pretty darn cool. So in 1973, it's the first time that they created a single varietal cru grappa, which is this product, which is not in front of you because this is like a $300 bottle of grappa. I only get one a year. So this was their initiation into the single varietal. And it's a really incredible story. They're using pico-leaf grapes. And I'll talk a little bit about more of that in a second. But the idea was that it was unheard of. They were using this ancient grape, and they were using only one variety of grape instead of just mashing them all together and just producing as much as they could. And everyone was like super excited to buy it. And then they found out the price tag, and they all canceled their orders. So instead of lowering the price, they said, this is a really quality product. Instead of selling it to our neighbors and other Italians, let's actually go out to the world and market this. So they brought it to dignitaries and famous people around the world, and they realized, wow, this is an incredibly beautiful, high-quality grappa. And so there we are today, basically. In 1983, they expanded from 12 stills to 24 stills. And then the fifth generation, Christina, Antonella, and Elisabetta, basically kind of came into the business. So they were basically building a distillery for each one of them. And then in 89, they planted 40 acres of those ancient grapes. So the pico-leaf, and I'm not going to say all the other ones because I'm not very good at Italian. And then in 2002, they actually did win the Oscars del Vino from the Italian Association of Songs. So pretty impressive resume that this family has when it comes to production of grappa. And I think you'll see it when we actually start tasting in just a few seconds. But today, they are known for having some of the freshest pomace, for having 5 distinct distilleries that produce basically their single varieties. Each one has 12 stills within them. They do have a beautiful temperature-controlled fermentation system for the white grape mark in these incredible silos, operating 24 hours a day during harvest. It's crazy go time. 7 aging warehouses, and this is where MIG comes in, by the way, which is the controlling state. So basically, once you barrel the grappa and put it into the warehouse, it is under lock and key. You can't get in there without a government official. So that way it's actually controlled as far as the aging time and process there. Right now in storage, they have about 2,300, 2,350 barrels or barriques, small barrels, aging today. Pretty cool.
So they only do the single varietals? They don't try anything with one of them?
So we do have a couple of blended items. The items that we're tasting today is pretty much everything that's available in Florida. But if you take a look at the booklet on your table, you'll notice there's a bunch of other distillates. They also make a grape distillate. They make some honey distillates and a couple of other really cool things. They have tons of products that we don't even have available here in the U.S. So let's chat about pico-leaves for just a second. So on your plates, I actually have some golden raisins. So I thought this was very appropriate considering that this grape is pretty interesting. So it's a rare historical grape. It's named for that because it has very small stalks, pico-leaf, pico, small, and it has a very low yield. And it's typically done in this pasito style, which basically means you're going to harvest the grapes and then you're going to dry them out on straw mats. So almost turn them into raisins to condense the sugars. So you can imagine how wonderful this grappa is going to taste because of the rarity of the grape and the sweetness of it, right? So pretty impressive. For the Picolate, the legendary, it is a Hall of Fame spirit from Mr. Paul Cult. And for tasting notes, honeycomb, apples, acacia flowers, muscatel, figs. If anybody is interested in tasting it after the seminar, I'm sure I can pour out a few little things. So, everybody ready to taste?
Yeah.
I thought so. So, essentially, on your tasting mats, I'll just walk you through the top. The top row, from left to right, is going to be Moscato, Merlot, and Chardonnay. These are all your single varietals. And on the bottom row are your vendemmias, which are basically blends, which we'll walk into those when we get there. The way we're going to do this is, I would actually like for you to go through and nose each one, and then kind of come back and try them as we talk about each of the brands and the styles and the food pairings. So you can take a little sip, you can have a little bite, and you can kind of, at your leisure, I guess you could say, try a few things together. For each of them, I will have kind of the food pairings of what really kind of works with it, but feel free to go outside the box. If you think, you're like, I tasted this and I think this will be delicious with a little bit of Pecorino Romano cheese, then go for it. On your plates, you basically have strawberries, you've got dark chocolate, red grapes, golden raisins. The soft cheese is a Fontina, and the hard cheese is a Parmigiano Reggiano, right? And then you've got scoops of cheesecake. So a nice creamy dessert for you to kind of enjoy with grappa. So grappa, especially any of the Bianca or the young styles, should always be served at cellar temperature or lower. So if you are serving grappa in your restaurant after dinner, it's ideal to keep it in the fridge, pour it, kind of let it sit for a while to come to room temperature or cellar temperature. That's the ideal temperature for serving grappa. Warm grappa, especially here in Florida, is not that pleasurable.
So do you want us to just kind of do this on our own, or?
No, I'm going to walk you through. We'll walk through each of them and then you can kind of go for it. So just a few things, notes on grappa. If you are serving an aged grappa, you can serve it closer to room temperature, but I still think it's really enjoyable at a little bit of a chilled temperature. With your coffee, one of the things that we're going to do is espresso. It's chilled, because hot coffee right now is kind of hard to do for this many people. But you can do what we call a caffè corretto, which is have a couple sips of your coffee, you can pour some grappa in, or you can wait until you get to the very bottom of the glass and kind of swirl it around down there. And you can choose whichever grappa you like to pair with that. So let's look at Moscato. Go ahead and pick up your Moscato and nose it. And if you'll notice, it's like rose and thyme. It's got lots of kind of vanilla notes to it. It's got a very sweet aromatic nose to it. And then what we'll do is we'll pop through each one. And then if you want to pick up the Merlot, so this is 100% Merlot pomace. It is rested in stainless steel for about 10 to 12 months. Completely different nose, right?
I'm sorry if you've already answered this, but are you getting your pumice from like line production on site, or are you getting it from local vineyards?
Both. So the Noninos own quite a few acres, about 40 acres of wine, of vineyards themselves. So they'll use that for not only their grape distillate, but also for the grappas, especially on some of the rarer, older, ancient styles of grapes. But then they're also they're buying from producers, all from out kind of northeast Italy. But it has to be fresh, like pressed that day, or they won't accept it. So the Merlot, when you nose the Merlot, completely different nose, right? Different aroma. And then we pick up that kind of cherry stones. It's a little musty almost. Feel free to nose and sip if you like. Your next one is the Chardonnay. So the Chardonnay is aged in barriques. So this is considered, it's aged for at least 12 months. When you age a grappa, obviously it's going to take on some of the characteristics of the wood, right? So mostly ex-sherry. Lots of kind of pastry, bread, vanilla. kind of like, I always say with the Chardonnay, I even like pick up some of those buttery notes that you would typically pick up in the wine, right? And then with the Vendemmia, so the Vendemmia is also a Bianca, but the big difference here is it's actually a mix of grapes. So it's a Pinot and a Malvasia grape pomace coming together into this one. And it's really designed for cocktails. So the single varietals tend to be a little pricey. So they're really difficult to incorporate into cocktail programs. With the Vendemmias, they're priced at a much lower price point. They're a little less expensive to produce because they are not single varietal. So you're able to actually maybe incorporate these into a cocktail program. So with the Vendemmia, nice floral, fruity nose to it. I get lots of apricot, a little pastry, kind of bready. And then the Vendemmia Reserva is going to be a Reserva, so that means it's aged 18 months or more. And this is actually all local Fruelian pomace. I swear I said the word. So it's going to be a blend of a lot of those ancient grapes that we were talking about earlier, right? I get a lot more like vanilla and chocolate.
What's the average proof of all these?
They are all 41%. All 41. So let's go back to Moscato. And at this point, go ahead and start, kind of with the Moscato. I would recommend a little bit of, kind of the fresh fruits. If you want to do some grapes, strawberry, maybe even a little sip of a little bite of the cheesecake at this point. Grappa is really considered a digestif. It's fantastic for that after dinner moment, served with desserts. They all tend to pair very well with creamy desserts and kind of chocolate or ice cream, and especially espresso and coffee. I love Grappa espresso martinis. We're going to have one of those at the gala, by the way.
So all the wine that they make to get the pomace, they use for branding?
No, the winemakers are well,
All the estates?
the estate stuff, yeah. They have other people who are they're making some brandies, they're making some grape distillates that they do on site as well, but we don't have those available in the United States.
But they're not producing wine.
They might be producing wine for themselves. I'm not 100% sure. I've never asked them that, actually, what they do with their own vineyards. They might sell some of the grapes too. So, what are we thinking here with this? Yep.
I have a question about the Pico leaf.
Uh-huh.
I know actually about the ranking. You use make straw wine. Do you use race-dated to make
Yeah. Yeah, especially because they're always, it's the leftovers from the wine process, so they're going to make that sweet white wine.
Class is over, guys, hold on.
All right, come back, all right. So her question was for the Pico leaf, since they're basically raising, they're doing the I forgot what it's called now. Thank you. So they're actually drying the grapes. So are they using the dried grapes? So once you actually make that into wine, it's going to have a little bit of alcohol left over, but it's going to have to go into ensilage for a secondary fermentation. So same process. So that's one of the reasons why Pico leaf is so expensive. Tiny, tiny yield, plus you're getting a tiny bit of alcohol from each of those, especially from that pomace. So very rare in that sense. All right, so Muscat. Everybody tried this, right? The Moscato. And what did you pair it with? What are your thoughts? I'd like to hear a couple of raisins. You like it with the raisins? Fantastic. What about, did anybody try it with the strawberry?
Yeah.
I think that would be really nice with the strawberries. Beautiful. Anybody try it with the cheesecake? Yeah?
Good.
It was good? It was nice. Definitely. Okay. Beautiful. All right, let's go to Merlot and do a little sampling here. So with the Merlot, I like the Merlot personally with coffee. I love the Merlot with coffee. It's really, really beautiful with coffee, and I think it's gonna be really nice with the cheeses. Most likely, I'm thinking the Fontina, probably more than the Parmesan, but. And I think it'll be good with chocolate too. This is one way to keep you guys quiet, just keep your mouth small. Right? I'm gonna go out of the box on this one. I'm gonna try the Merlot with a little chocolate. I guess I won't be talking. It's actually really nice with the chocolate. Anybody got something that they thought went very nicely together? Something that stood out to them with the Merlot? With the cheese? With the Fontina or the Parm? With the Fontina. Yeah, I think so too. Very nice. Did anybody have a little sip of the cold brew afterwards? Yeah.
I guess the cold brew tastes really earthy.
It's very earthy. Yeah. Like, just tell me if I'm going too fast. I'm going too fast. Too much coffee. All right. Chardonnay. So when we're talking about a barrel-aged grappa, it's going to have much more intensity in the flavor profile from the barrel aging itself, right? The interaction with the wood is going to create a deeper, richer, more mellow spirit. So go ahead and taste your Chardonnay. This is probably one that I find in most Italian and fine dining establishments, usually Merlot and Chardonnay. I had some of this actually on Wednesday night after dinner. And I felt great afterwards. All that Italian food went down just fine. Do you notice it's much more mellow on the profile, right? This is probably a little bit easier to sip straight. Usually when you're serving grappa, you'd be serving in the tulip glass, so those flavors are kind of concentrating, a nice little kind of stemmed, tiny little glass. All of the grappas are considered 100% artisanal. Is that for me? I have one. Oh. I was like, thank you though. So all of the grappas are 100% artisanal in the sense that every time you look at a bottle of Nonino, which it's not the easiest way to read it, but it's written all the way around the logo, basically, how it's made, what it's made from, in Italian. So that's always the fun part too, if you can translate your Italian a little bit there. Right? So with the Chardonnay, this is going to pair a little bit better with some of the richer items on the plate. So definitely the cheeses, the chocolate. I was going to put nuts out today, but I didn't want to kill anybody. Anybody have nut allergies in the room? Good, fantastic. So I would recommend the Chardonnay with a little bit of the chocolate, maybe a little bit of the cheese. Have a little experimentation there. I actually enjoy the Chardonnay with creamy desserts too. So if you want to try a little bit of the cheesecake with it, I think you might enjoy that as well. That vanilla and pastry really comes through. Eat the cheesecake. Anything shining out? Anything standing out on this one? The chocolate. Yeah, I think the chocolate intensifies the chocolate flavor of the grappa itself, the notes that are coming out of the cocoa like that. Really, really nice. So imagine this with like a brownie, or even like complemented with tiramisu. Yeah, really, really nice. Beautiful pairing. Every time I have grappa and dessert together, I like get really excited. This is awesome. Because it's a new experience every time. And you have a lot of different varietals to play with and a lot of different desserts to play with. So really kind of fun with the pairings. Anybody else? Something their favorite with Chardonnay? Or with like Parmesan? With the Parmesan?
Parmesan.
Yeah. More of the hard cheeses. Yeah. Absolutely. Salty. Quite goes well and adds some like guac meat. All right, we're gonna shift gears from, since we had our single varietals, now we're gonna go back to the blends. So we're looking at the vendemmias. Vendemmia means harvest, by the way, in Italian. So it was the idea of harvesting a couple of different grapes and bringing them together into a beautiful grappa that is much more kind of approachable from a price standpoint. So essentially you can get this bottle for $30 versus like $60 for the single varietal, so it makes a big difference. For the vendemmia, this would be something that you could definitely have with sushi or fish. It blends into cocktails beautifully. Each of you got a little cocktail book at your station as well, so you can pop through and look at some of the different recipes that have been created by bartenders from all over the globe. With this one, I feel like it has such a great fruity nose to it that it's going to blend really well, kind of fruity, citrus. No dying. Are you choking on the cheese or the grappa? Somebody get this man of water.
How much does the distillate vary vintage by vintage? And is there any reason to do?
They're pretty consistent. I mean, they're pretty consistent. I mean, at the end of the day, they're batting. They're going to bat for each batch. So they're going to be consistent. They're going to pull different barrels to create a consistent flavor profile that matches. But yeah, I mean, obviously grapes have a completely different season, but at the end of the day, the essence of them is what's being distilled. So it's not like wine where it's going to be, the juice is going to have some crazy variations based on the years. Yeah. All right, so vendemmia. What are you guys thinking with vendemmia? Cheesecake? Raisins? Anybody else find one that they like? Cheesecake? Yeah. Cheesecake or maybe strawberries? Can anybody try strawberry? Strawberry and a cheesecake? Strawberry cheesecake? Cheesecake chocolate? Maybe like a bunch of raspberries? Strawberries? I know. So if you're thinking about making cocktails with this, you have like unlimited possibilities, right? So it's going to go really well with a lot of your fruity cocktails. It's going to even mix well with espresso, or even into like more of a stirred cocktail. It's going to pair beautifully with maybe like some of the vermouths and amaros and things like that as well, right? That's pretty darn nice. All right, everybody ready for Reserva? So with the Reserva, this is aged for an entire 18 months under lock and key. And in order to put Reserva on a bottle of grappa, so this is a nice one to know. Whenever you see a grappa that's got color to it, you can assume that it's aged, right? But it would. And if you look at, like, if it says Reserva, then it has to be a minimum of that 18 months aging period. So, cheating. That's good. All right, so with the Reserva, we can look at definitely the chocolate. This would pair nicely, you know, kind of that after dinner cigar moment. It'll also, I think, pair nicely with like meat and like we were doing like a charcuterie. It would be an option as well for kind of that cheese and charcuterie, either before dinner or after dinner. I'm gonna try this with some dark chocolate personally. I think it'll also be delicious with the parmesan. Oh, like I should stop using my drink. How do you host a food pairing seminar? Mr. Duff? Usually when you're the host, you're probably not supposed to eat and drink at the same time, right? And talk?
No one ever told
Is
me
that one
that.
of the rules?
I think you're an example for all of us.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Anything stand out on the Reserva, the Vendemmia Reserva? Cheese? Parmesan or Fontina? Parmesan? Yeah, salty, definitely. Yeah, that would definitely be nice, I think. The raisins? Raisins? Well, I mean, it's made from grapes. Right, yeah. So, you know, usually when we're talking about food pairings, we're either looking at, you know, complementary or contrasting, right? And so this, I mean, the grapes and definitely the raisins are going to be very complementary. They're all, yeah, absolutely. Does everybody feel good? They got a little bit of food in their stomachs? Who made it to breakfast this morning? That's pretty good. 35%. That's 35. That's not bad at all. It's not 5, right? It's not 5. I'm incredibly fast. And it's because I've had too much coffee today. But I think at this point, if you do have a little bit of your cold brew left, I would definitely suggest having a little espresso. Add your favorite grappa to it. I'm personally going to add Merlot to mine. And we'll do a little toast. If there's any questions, I'll answer those after. I'm going to take a sip of more of espresso because that's what I need. So cheers, thank you all for being a part of Tampa Reveal Day Conference. This might be my 7th or 8th year as an attendee or a sponsor or an MVB or something along the way. I'm really excited that today is my only quote-unquote job. The rest of it I'm going to enjoy with you. And without all of you coming in and volunteering and helping out, it wouldn't be possible. So I'll say it for Ingrid and behalf of the entire conference team that this is fun. And I hope for those of you who's first year. Awesome. I'm sure you already have a good taste, you're a couple days in, but as we go through the weekend and, you know, at the end of the night when you finish at the gala, you're like, this was amazing. So thank you for everything that you're doing to be here. So cheers to you guys. Since we have a couple of minutes, that means like plenty of time. Yes, Alex.
Yes.
Yes.
We're all used to the Amaro.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that?
Oh.
Where I'm going with that, I'm just.
My seminar is entitled, I love it when you call me a big grappa and Amaro. So the Amaro is basically a grappa distillate base with a neutral grain base that is combined with all of the amazing herbs and spices that are a big secret, but happen to include wormwood, gentian, mountain thyme, orange, rhubarb. Anything else that you can think of right off the top of your head, Eric?
Not what I was thinking, but.
So basically, all of that is combined combined in barriques and stored for 5 years before it is then combined with natural sugar, turbinado sugar, and bottled into the beautiful Amaro Nonino that we all love. Makes paper planes and makes killer versions of Negronis as well. So yes, so Amaro Nonino is a big part of the family, but today we're focused on GRAPPA.
So if I could just say one thing about support, so as a supplier, like you think we supply support. So if any of this interests you and you're like, man, I really like this, please reach out so we can actually get into your bar and your establishment and like implement it. So when staff training, samples, cool shirts, you know, things that kind of help.
Call him for the cool shirt because I don't have any.
But I mean, seriously, if there's something on here we thought, oh, I could use this, just don't be shy about reaching out because that's really what the idea of helping you guys implement things like this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.